All right. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for today's Urban Ag Hour. We are so excited that you were able to join us this morning and hear from an amazing speaker. The Urban Agriculture Production Small Scale and Beginning Farmer Program is partnered with USDA, NRCS, and FSA to offer this series. Today, we will hear from Phiilip Jacquez, who is the NRCS Supervisory Natural Resource Specialist and the Organic Champion in NRCS. Thank you so much. We will have the opportunity to hear an amazing presentation from Phiilip, and after his presentation, we will have an open Q&A session at the end. That's where you guys are more than welcome to unmute your selves, ask any questions, or send those questions in the chat. So I will now hand it over to Phiilip, and I will let you take it away from here.
Thanks, Tiffany, and good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here to speak to you this morning for a little bit about soil health and some NRCS resources available. You should be seeing the first slide of the presentation. Is that correct?
Yes, we can see the first slide. It's just not in presentation mode.
Right. There we go.
Yep, perfect.
All right. So one of my other roles within USDA NRCS, Natural Resources Conservation Service, is I also serve as the organic champion for NRCS in the state. So I provide assistance to my colleagues regarding organic production, just so they're aware of the various regulations under the National Organic Program, and then how our conservation practices can assist producers to transition into organic production as well. So a little bit more about me. I've been with the agency for 36 years now, first as a soil conservationist, which I work directly with farmers and ranchers with conservation planning to address their local resource concerns. And then as a district conservationist, which is now a supervisory natural resource specialist position, or team leader for Team 6. So I basically cover all of Pinal County and a portion of eastern Maricopa County. So I go as far north as Carefree and Cave Creek, providing assistance to producers as needed. I'm also a micro farmer. I've got a 208 square foot kitchen garden in my backyard, and I also have citrus trees. Well, let's talk about soils a little bit, since that's what we're going to be getting into. Soil first appeared about 450 million years ago. And soil formation processes take up to 1,000 years to generate 1 inch of soil. And so those things responsible for soil formation is the parent material of the area, the climate, the organisms, whether they're the micro and macroorganisms, topography, as well as time, all play a role in soil formation, which is why in Arizona we have aridosols. Back east, we're going to see or the plain states, we have mollisols. That's the soil order. But I grew up in Michigan. The bottom line is, folks, the three main textures within soils are sand, silt, and clays. And the nature of those soils will definitely be based upon the parent material, your climate, and topography in those areas as well. So I'd like to share some perspectives about soil health from just my own career. And we kind of began as an agency talking about it and addressing soil health, but we didn't really call it soil health, even in 1935, when some of those during the Dust Bowl periods that reached Washington, D.C. It kind of began there with Hugh Hammond Bennett looking at various practices to address erosion back then. And interesting enough, some of the initial projects that they undertook as an agency as Soil Conservation Service didn't do too well. And there's an interesting book about that. In 1994, the name changed to the Natural Resources Conservation Service, and we have always been utilizing a planning process to assist growers and farmers and ranchers to address natural resource concerns. And that process is called SWAPA plus H. And the next slide will talk a little bit more in detail of what each letter stands for. And of course, it's soil, water, air, plants, animals, a human factor. So interestingly enough, it's got my favorite subject matter at the beginning, soil. But we really need your input as a producer to understand and to assist you with our planning process, what your goals and objectives are, what concerns you're experiencing out at your farm. So then that allows us to gather data at your farm through discussion, get your feedback so we can come up with hopefully a suite of practices to address those concerns. But like I said, we always look at the soils first. Why is soil important? Well, our Earth's surface is covered by 2/3 of water, but soil is only 7.5% that's productive enough to work and help with the world's food supply. Soil is very important, holds nutrients for water, plants, and water available for animals, acts as a filter. It can affect the amount of water returning to the atmosphere, as well as now what do we tend to be doing with our prime agricultural soils. So over time, this is still the agency perspective. Through various farm bills, we've been looking at soil health, but maybe not directly. When I started in the late 80s, no-till still was a big subject matter. And of course, one of my colleagues back then tried to get some test plots done and promote no-till in Arizona, but we met some resistance. But we knew what the benefits were. Eventually, over time, the agency was promoting carbon sequestration or the installation of conservation buffers to provide a diverse habitat, not only for wildlife, but diversifying the cropping sequence. Then we know what happened with that diversity. We gain in soil microorganisms. And of course, we're still trying to address erosion, so cover crops are also a vital conservation tool. However, we still do get some soils like we see at the bottom left-hand slide, very cloddy, very little structure, and the potential for erosion is still there. So why the buzz in soil health now? We finally identified that soil is a living thing. It's an ecosystem. So, we're starting to see now that some producers are thinking about how can I feed my soil while they're producing crops. So there's 5 basic functions for the soil. As I said, it can regulate water, it sustains plant and animal life, filters and buffers pollutants, it cycles nutrients such as carbon, nitrogen, potassium, phosphorus, and many others cycle through the soil. And of course, it can provide physical stability and support, not only to crops, but even structures that are built by man. And of course, it contains organic matter. So there are four basic principles of soil health are minimize disturbance, manage biodiversity, maximize soil cover, and maximize living roots. By having that kind of diversity within your soils, you're going to have an abundance of soil life that will sustain your plants and also have that they will be healthier as well. So some questions if you're interested in assistance from NRCS is what are your short-term and long-term goals? Have you observed any issues with crop production or soil management? Do you apply any soil amendments such as compost, mulch, or other? What is your irrigation method? And are you experiencing any issues with that irrigation system? Do you have any problems with pests, whether they be insects, burrowing animals, or even just maybe the local cats, for example? Is wind a concern? So, in addition to those kind of questions by an NRCS planner, we may suggest doing a soil health assessment, looking at on-site soil testing. Along with that assessment can establish a good benchmark condition for your soil and a benchmark to assist with the planning process. The assessment can help you determine the appropriate conservation measures to address those concerns. What are the plants growing there? And you may conduct a slate test, which is basically putting a soil clod in water. And as the slide shows, under a conventionally tilled system, the structure of the soil, it disintegrates within seconds, while a soil that's high in organic matter has minimal disturbance, has the cover, the root masses within it, does not disintegrate like that conventionally tilled system. So a soil health assessment is another tool we can use to assist you. Well, what would be some unfavorable soil conditions that we view as an agency as a resource concern? Well, compaction is one. Soil organic matter depletion is another. Degradation of soil organism habitat. Materials in the soil unsuitable for plant production. Contamination by organic compounds. And we should also take into consider what was the historical land use. And I bring that up because in some cases for urban production, that site may contain undesirable compounds. So then again, soil testing is going to be a key component. So in terms of soil testing, you have a couple options. Of course, again, it depends on the history of that site. First, the soil test could be used to identify potential contaminants, such as heavy metals. Second, a standard nutrient soil test can provide you the current benchmark for your macronutrients and micronutrients, along with soil health indicators. But for the soil health indicators, you need to work with that local lab to make sure they conduct those analyses. So if you're something to keep in mind, if you're raising crops in raised beds, such as compost or potting mix, you need to let the lab know, because then there's a different testing protocol for those types of materials, because those are considered soilless material, not soil. Now, in terms of conservation practices that NRCS may provide to you, depending on the concerns, we have quite a few. Anything from soil health testing, composting, cover crops, tillage management, mulching, along with nutrient and pest management. And if there's issues with wind breaks, or potentially hedgerows, and then finally irrigation management. So again, what we provide to you as alternatives will depend on the information you provide us and the feedback you give back to us for that planning development. The nice thing about this plan that you get from NRCS is it can easily dovetail into some of our financial programs that we have, which I won't focus on today. So I do want to first talk about that practice called 216, which is soil health testing. Again, it identifies soil health as a resource concern. And so this specific practice is going to look at indicators relative to the ecological function of your soil. So the analysis done at the lab will measure microbial activity, the availability of carbon for soil microbes, and even look at the aggregate stability within the soil. So if you're thinking about technical assistance from NRCS, one thing I want to assure anyone that's listening is we are not a regulatory agency. All our programs and services are voluntary. So maybe if you're not sure which way to go, you could even just request some basic technical assistance from your local field office staff. And then that can help you get a handle on your SWAPA, the soil, water, air, plants, and animals. And if you're interested, we can even schedule an in-field soil health assessment. If you have specific concerns about the soils on your farm, we can even bring out a resource soil scientist to ground truth the soils. We have published soil surveys that are digitally available online through Web Soil Survey, but sometimes there can be some hiccups in the data, so we can get our soil scientist out to your site to specifically look at your soils and make sure what's in the soil survey is correct, or make corrections if need be. So for soil health and soil resources available, understanding that your soil is its own ecosystem is a step toward better management. Soil testing should be a key component on a regular basis for your farm and your operation. Thinking about incorporating those soil health principles and what soil amendments you're applying, and maybe why not consider a soil health assessment. Well, that is the end of my presentation. I'm open for any questions for the audience. I will also stop sharing. There's my contact information. I'll leave up there, but I might put it in the chat as well.
Thank you so much, Philip. We really appreciate it. That was very valuable information. If anybody has any questions, you guys are more than welcome to unmute yourselves and ask, or you can send them in the chat. We will put his contact information in the chat if you guys want to take pictures of that, so that way you have that in case you want to contact him for any questions later on. I am going to go ahead and share my screen and put the survey on. If you guys could take that survey, give us some feedback, that would be very much appreciated. We do have our first question in the chat. It says, are soil services available to/on a piece of raw land, or only one currently growing crops?
We can provide assistance on raw land. If it's in an area that is within our soil survey coverage, you have two options. We can either schedule some time with our soil scientist, or we can even steer you to the web soil survey site, which you can enter in either an address, a plat number, section, township, and range. And you can zoom in on that area and develop what's called a APE, an area of potential, or API, an area of potential interest. And within that API, that system will identify what specific soils you have. And then, so it just depends on what you're looking for. We can definitely assist with that.
Perfect. Another question is that a person has feral cats that keep getting into their containers and garden beds. Are there any suggestions for that?
Let's see. I guess in terms, if you have raised beds or container gardens, you might want to try something like chicken wire. If it's in a larger growing space, you may have to create some kind of barrier from the surface up, kind of like digging a trench and putting a fine mesh wire in that trench, as well as supporting it upright so they can't get into those garden beds. But that can be tricky. If you're in a city, you may want to contact animal control as well if they're definitely out of hand.
We have a follow-up question to the first question. So they were asking if they contact you directly or do they work with their NRCS rep?
If they already have NRCS representative, go ahead and contact them directly. For example, since my work area, I kind of go as far east as Paradise Valley, than anything west of Paradise Valley would be picked up by our Avondale Service Center, but feel free to give me a call. It's not that hard to provide assistance on soils. But if you have a rep, go ahead and contact them first, definitely.
Another question we have, and I might be saying it wrong, I do apologize for that. Kalish, and then what is the best way to minimize that?
Caliche.
Oh, I did say it wrong, I'm sorry.
Well, from a personal perspective, I have caliche in my soils. They're just at about the bottom of the shovel depth. If it's not the true thick cemented caliche and you can break through it, that would be the better thing to do, is to kind of break through the caliche. You just have to remove those big bits. I mean, if it's very impenetrable, then you might want to consider raised beds. So then you're adjusting your rooting depth. It depends on how deep it is. In some cases, I've seen it as bad where we had to use a jackhammer for digging a tree, a hole for a large tree. So it just depends on the situation. After that, once you've broken up that caliche layer, if you're applying mulches or composts and getting those turned in, that's definitely going to help adjust with the chemistry as well.
Awesome. What is the average time frame for getting test results?
Well, for like a standard nutrient test, I would think you should be getting it within 24 hours, but U of A does have a publication that does list various soil, water, plant testing labs. So even check their website to see what the cost is, but even contact them directly on how quickly they can provide you results. I mean, for some farms, if they're sampling 1,000 acres, it's going to take them some time, but if it's a smaller farm, you should be able to get those back within 24 hours. But double check with the lab that you like to use.
Awesome questions. Does anybody have any more questions?
I have a quick question.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I work for New Roots, and we are a refugee agriculture program. And an issue that we kind of run into a lot is soil and water conservation and people doubting like soil holding on to water. And I was wondering if that test that you provided earlier with putting like a piece of soil in water, if that would be a good example of showing people how like soil with amenities can retain moisture better versus would that be like something I feel like that's because we have a lot of barriers that we navigate within language and
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think one of the biggest challenges, the slate test would be an opportunity. I think also having the various growers understand how important organic matter is to water holding capacity. So, yeah, I've seen some instances where, drip tubes, drip tape was set aside and they just went to a standard flood type situation. And you definitely could see a difference in the production and the health of those kind of plants. So that definitely would be one. Mhm.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
I have a question, Philip. I'm wondering if you could speak to the new, I believe it's 823 organic NRCS provision. I know that the period has passed for that, falls under equip, I think. I know it's a new NRCS organic soil health provision. And I also am curious to hear your thoughts on sort of organic with till versus no till and what you think promotes more organic matter.
Wow. Okay. Well, first of all, the question on the 823 practice, that is for organic production. Now, when we have a conservation practice that's in the 800 level, it means it's an interim practice standard, which means it's undergoing technical review. States are looking at it. But so with respect to organic production, that practice basically is a template for any producer that's interested in transitioning to be certified organic, what steps they will need to obtain that certification. So it's basically a template for them to look at to make sure that their crop production methods, the seeds that they purchase or live plants that they use for their production is going to meet the National Organic Program. So then also they would have to look at what amendments they're applying to their crop production fields. They need to make sure that it's on the lists of acceptable soil amendments. Again, that's accessible on the National Organic Program website, which is through Agricultural Management Service. So it's basically the template for producers. While they're doing that, record keeping is essential for organic certification because the certifier is going to make sure that you haven't applied any organic chemicals, or if there's been history of applying any organic chemicals or known contamination from heavy metals and things like that, you have to do enough testing and documentation over a 3-year period to show that those materials are no longer occurring in the soils. So that's that basic program. If you're interested in NRCS does have the Organic Transition Initiative. It's a program through the Environmental Quality Incentives Program, which is one of our core financial programs available to all producers. The thing for the Organic Transition Initiative is it's looking to producers that either are in transition or want to transition to organic production and be certified. I hope I answered that question, Colleen. There are some other organic, the organic initiative actually occurred as back in 2009, but we seem to be reinventing the wheel with the popularity of the urban and small farm programs as well.
Thanks. That makes a lot of sense. And then do you have an opinion or perspective on organic with till versus no till for soil health?
Well, I personally am trying, even on my small vegetable plots, to maintain soil cover or maintain cover even during the summer. So what I'm trying now is this summer I'm going to plant a cover crop of cowpeas. One, they will fix nitrogen for the upcoming growing season. The second thing, it'll keep my small plots covered during the hot summer months. And maybe if I like cowpeas or black-eyed peas, I might harvest a few to see how they do. But I am trying to do mostly no-till, even with my small plots, just because it's less wear and tear on my own body. But I do know some growers that are trying to do no-till. I'm just trying to look at ways where we can use cover crops to maintain production. If they're flipping beds quickly, it might be a little difficult, but I do know some of like the BCS tractor has implements to try to keep soil disturbance to a minimum. But I am following a few producers that are no-till and definitely try to encourage it, but everyone's, I'm not going to say it's the only way to go.
Thank you. Is there a resource from NRCS in Arizona that offers producers different cover crops that might work on a small scale in Arizona?
There is one publication through U of A that talks about cover crop options for vegetable systems. I'm working with a small producer right now, so we're looking at some different adaptations of that publication to see how it can work for vegetable systems and even forage systems for livestock.
Thank you. I'm so excited for that to come out. Thanks, Philip.
Oh, you're welcome.
We had another question in the chat. So this person has a 1/4 acre veggie farm, and her soil test shows low iron, and the soil lab suggested using a chelated soil amendment. She is not organic, but she likes to stick to those practices as much as she can. But she can't seem to find an organic option for the iron. Is there a way to increase that iron that isn't an amendment?
I have something in mind. Sarah, if I can get your contact information, why don't I provide you some information off when we're done with today's session. I have some things in mind, but I want to double check that they're considered an organic source. Just out of curiosity, though, did the soil test show, I'm kind of curious if there was any issues with sodium or total dissolved salts as well, because we have to think about some other soil chemistry too.
Quite a high pH.
Okay. pH. All right. Yes, if I can get your contact info, Sarah, I can definitely reach out to you with some options on that. Or if I could even get a copy of the total analysis, that would help too.
Awesome. These are some awesome questions, everyone. Does anybody have any more questions?
I have one more question that, if no one else has a question, it's sort of broad, but I'm wondering, Philip, if you could speak a little bit to your opinion on benefits of integrating livestock on a small scale for soil health and how that might impact soil health. Is it beneficial? Sort of what cases have you seen where growers have integrated livestock into maybe cover cropping systems?
Well, within an organic system, if you have livestock and you have pretty fresh manure, there are some criteria within the National Organic Program that does it needs to sit for a number of days at certain temperatures just to make sure certain pathogens aren't left in the manure before they're applied to the fields. Like anything, people have to folks need to keep in mind applying manure is fine but you have to think about what is the mineralization rate and the breakdown of that manure to available nutrients for nitrates or even your phosphates. I did see a case where, this is on a large scale system where a dairy was applying their corral manure, the solid manures, to their fields every year, taking soil tests, so their nitrogen content was high, their phosphate was very high. So those kind of things need soil testing. That's the bottom line. Kind of monitor what's going on with the soils. Nitrates are going to be the most mobile, but if you're applying manure on a regular basis, you need to think about mineralization rates in terms of what percentage will become available. But after a certain time, research has shown you're going to have what's called bioavailable, and that includes phosphorus, even though there's some binding by soil microorganisms in the soil to hold phosphates. A continual supply of manure that's mineralizing at various rates will provide you the nutrients you need in your soils. So again, how much you apply will depend on how much livestock you have. In terms of cover crops, I would think planning purposes to me is depending on the livestock, looking at forage resources that will, provide the best nutrition if you're keeping mother cows and calves, to make sure the mother cows have the nutrition they need to produce milk for healthy calves. And then if you're grazing an area, kind of go with that perspective of take half, leave half if you're setting up a grazing system. I would love to do some more research on kale as a potential protein source for livestock, which hasn't been done in Arizona yet.
How often would you suggest a farmer take soil tests when trying to improve soil?
I would urge them to do that yearly. One of my first producers I worked with to put in high tunnels, it's on 2 acres. They test their soils annually. So, and remember, even with drip irrigation, the nitrate is the most soluble form of nitrogen that the plants uptake. But then again, it's in and out of that, can move in and out of that root zone fairly quickly, depending on your irrigation system. So it definitely, I would encourage everyone to do soil tests annually.
A follow-up to that question. So you had said soils. So is that multiple tests in different areas for once a year?
Well, it depends on if you have one soil type on your farm, the lab that you contact, they will come out to the farm and actually pull the samples that they need to run the analysis you need. I tend to say soils because sometimes we deal with more than one soil type on a field.
Okay. And then how do high tunnels interact with soil health?
Well, that's a good question because I know some studies done at Kansas State, keeping the high tunnels covered, they started seeing changes in how the soil was behaving. And of course, the climate in Kansas is a lot different. So they started taking the cover off of their high tunnels to get some more weathering effect to the soils under those high tunnels. How it's going to impact the soils in Arizona, I think because we can apply irrigation whenever we want. I think as long as we're monitoring the soils analyses, maybe doing that soil health assessment on site, we might have a little bit more of an opportunity to maintain not see any drastic changes in the soils under a high tunnel.
Is there a recommended time to test soils after adding amendments, or can you test the soils a week or two after adding those amendments in?
I would say before you add your amendments, get a soil test done to see what the current levels are for pH, total dissolved salts, if there's sodium, your N, P, and K. Those are your macronutrients, and also what the current status of micronutrients are. Because then that might allow you to adjust your amendments.
I would just like to say thank you so much, Philip, and thank you everyone for attending our Urban Ag Hour this month. We hope that you enjoyed it and you learned something new. And we just can't wait for next week or next month's Urban Ag Hour. The survey is up on the screen, and we would really appreciate it if you could just take a few moments to scan that QR code or click the link to fill that out for us. And that concludes this month's Urban Ag Hour. Again, we just thank you all so much for attending, and we greatly appreciate Phiilip Jacquez coming on and speaking today. And we hope you have a great rest of your day, and we hope to see you all next month on March 20th for March's Urban Ag Hour.
Been a pleasure, Tiffany. Have a good day, everybody.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful rest of your day.